First order will be Pledge of Allegiance. If you please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Roger Brock.
Here.
Dean Button.
Here.
Michael Dye. Nathaniel Harris. Ann Herbert. William Hutton.
Here.
Sharon Zaney.
Here.
Pete Flores. Thomas White.
Here.
Five present. We have a quorum.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
just for the record, with 5 present, a final vote would have to have all 5 of you vote the same way.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for February 19th, 2019, and minutes for April 15th, 2019. We could have a,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I
Mr.
would,
Button.
I would move to approve the minutes of February 19th, 2019.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, thank you. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Button,
I would move to approve the minutes of our April 15th, 2019.
thank you. A second?
Second.
Mr. Hutton, thank you. And the ayes have it.
You haven't asked
Aye.
for the ayes.
Pardon me?
You didn't ask for the ayes.
I didn't ask. No, okay, yeah. I was thinking of them. So anyway, we got the minutes taken care of. Any old business?
No old business.
New business. CP-19-06, petition of Moynihan Capital for determination on abandonment and extending the 1-year period of a legal non-conforming use in a R-1U urban single-family residential district located at 5945-5947 Heiselip Place within the city of Hammond, Lake County, Indiana. And notification requirements required on this case?
Yes.
And they've met?
Yes, they have.
They have? Okay, thank you. And we have a petitioner for the case. Yeah, please come forward. If you'll sign in with your name and address, and then when you're done, if you'll just state your name and address for the board so we can hear it.
Sounds good. Hello, everyone. My name is Dennis Moynihan of Moynihan Capital.
Your address for the record.
Our business address of record is 612 Ridge Road, Munster, Indiana, 46321.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, perfect. So 5945-47 Hyslop is a current vacant 28-unit apartment building built in 1928. To our knowledge, the building has been vacant for the past about 4 to 5 years. Per city records, we believe the last time the building was occupied was in 2014. Our family, which is my father, Dennis Sr. here, and Connor Moynihan, we are business owners in the city of Hammond under our business name Moynihan Capital. Currently, we own 48 rented apartment units in the city of Hammond and these 28 vacant apartment units. So we own a total of 76 technically apartment units in the city of Hammond. We are current business owners and landlords in the neighborhood. We own a building at 593 One Park Place, which is a 13-unit building that we've owned since 2017. The building being discussed was bought from the past seller due to foreclosure, and we were in the process of trying to acquire this building for the past several years. It was an out-of-state investor that bought the building from a bank. We got in contact and we closed on buying the building June 7th of 2019. Upon buying the building, we paid back the $35,000 in back taxes that the former owner owed, of which roughly $20,000 went straight to the city of Hammond that was owed from back taxes from the prior owner. Our plan for the building is to maintain its current status of 28 apartment units and to renovate the units. Hyslop is a beautiful building. They can't build them like that anymore, beautiful masonry reconstruction. So our game plan is to have all new roof, all new windows, all new electric, all new plumbing, all new bathrooms, all new kitchens, and then rent them out to what we're thinking is market rate housing. So typically people that have jobs at Ford plant, Lear, they could work at the local hospital, post office workers. Those are our typical tenants that we rent to in the city of Hammond. So our motion is for the city of Hammond to extend the 1-year period of a legal non-conforming use for 5945 Hyslop so we can begin renovation on the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board members?
Actually, I have a concern is parking.
Yeah.
Because I understand there's no parking right there behind there. So I wonder where, now the block's gonna have at least 28 more cars.
Yeah.
Do you have plans for any kind of parking in the area?
That's a great question, and it's a top priority for us as we don't want to disrupt the local residents. We don't want to clog up the streets, so there's several options that we've already been speaking with. One would be the parking lot on the corner of Park and Waltham, so it's the Greater Deliverance Church. I've already spoken to the bishop, and he's willing to rent out spaces for $1 a day to our residents, so that'd be $30 a month, and that could satisfy probably a max of about 20 parking spaces right there. And then we've also been in touch with First Presbyterian Church. Aside from Sundays, they have a plethora of parking on the east side of Homan and on the west side of Homan. I spoke with their office administrative, and they're for the project, and we just need to iron out final details of parking, paying for it, and the logistics of it. And then there's 2 other major lots that we could potentially rent. One would be Montessori. We've spoken with Montessori. They are for the project, but we did not discuss any parking details with Montessori yet. And then the 4th major parking lot there that could be available for rent would be the North Township Trustee parking lot right off Homan, which is essentially right across the street from the building. And there's about 35 spots there that we would try to work out a rental arrangement as well.
When you just said you discussed, for example, the North Township or Montessori about renting their parking spaces, did you get far enough into the discussions about the, like it's overnight parking as opposed to daytime parking?
In my discussions with the church, the 2 churches, which I got more into the details, yeah, they're fully aware that it's overnight parking, and they prefer that it just didn't disrupt their Sunday masses.
Right. I mean, that's where any type of shared parking concepts, which occur in other developments, it's always you're trying to use the spaces when they're not using them.
Right.
And that's where, that's why I'm asking the question, because I understand just from the church standpoint, obviously they want their parking available on Sundays and possibly Wednesday night or whenever their services are. And the same thing with North Township or even Montessori, they would want their parking during the day when they're there, and then that's why I'm asking the question about, did you discuss if it's just overnight parking?
No, we did not get into those details, but it does work out well, whereas most people work during the day, so they wouldn't have to occupy the parking lot during their normal business hours, so wouldn't have that much disruption. And then to add on it, if the Westlake Corridor expansion does happen, it allows for people to easily commute to the trains. Even the Home and Ave train right now, the way shared services such as Uber and Lyft are available, it's a prime location for people to easily commute to the train station, whereas potentially they wouldn't even need a job if they work downtown, or need a vehicle if they work downtown Chicago.
In the parking, say at Park in Waltham, is that between the individual renter, or is that going to be between the developer, the owner? How is that? How do you handle? You just increase the monthly rent by the $30 a round number, or is that individual going to be responsible for paying that?
We think just for ease of doing business, it's better if our name is on the hook for it. So therefore, it ensures that the local businesses and church get paid and get paid timely, and that there's no excuses. So just that additional cost would be built into the rent. And then we also talked about if we occupied enough spaces, then we would also take care of the maintenance for their parking lots, which, for a church that doesn't have, sometimes an abundance of resources, really help them out with lawn care, snow maintenance, et cetera, can go a long way for them.
And this will be a written document or a contract?
Correct, exactly, yeah, it would be a formal document.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not to get mired into the details or to micromanage the arrangement, but I would, in order for that to practically make sense, you would probably have to develop some kind of parking pass or sticker so that everybody knows whose car is what in case there's something needs to be removed for, I don't know, snow removal purposes or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea, and at our property at 6447 Alexander, which is a 30-unit property, we have parking stickers for those tenants as well. So we're used to an assigned parking space and stickers and patrol to make sure that no one's taking people's spots.
Other questions, concerns from the board members?
Mr. President, I see, Mr. Poland, that we don't have any site plans in here to tell us how these alleged parking areas are related to the apartment building itself. So I'm just kind of guessing that probably from the west side of the Presbyterian Church to the front door of this building could be well over 350 feet at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I don't have a site plan either, and I can't confirm that dimension, but there is a zoning ordinance provision that when we talk about parking lots that are remote, they are supposed to be within 300 feet of the entrance to the facility, so that becomes a technical issue. I think those are those are important details, and I'm not sure if you're still in. You haven't developed the final agreements with the prospective property owners.
Right.
So there is that as an issue, but I'm not sure where else you were going, Mr. Hutton.
Well, where I'm going is, there were a number of different parking areas associated with this, and the coordination between the people who are occupying those parking lots during the day or in the evening or on a Sunday or on a Wednesday night, whatever it might be, and the fact that, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Dennis had made a statement that one parking lot could easily handle 20 cars. I don't know if it can or not. So I guess I'm looking for a site plan of some sort to tell us how many cars we can get with landscaped areas, et cetera, and et cetera. to accommodate this 28-unit apartment, how many parking spaces are needed? How many parking spaces are needed, Dennis?
Per our conversations with Brian, it's 1.5 times the number of units. So it would be 42 spaces would be needed. But to your point on how far away the parking spaces are from the building, all those lots that I mentioned are within the 300 feet. We, working with city planning, we had to notify all 43 property owners within 300 feet of the building, and those were on the list within 300 feet.
I'm not saying that they're not within 300 feet. I'm saying that parts of those parking areas are more than 300 feet.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
That could very well be true.
So you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'd just like to see the plan that shows all these parking spaces and the distances from the front door of the building or the back door of the building. Is there any parking now for this building on site?
No.
Really?
No, it was built at a time where on-site parking was not required. That's why it's a legal non-conforming use.
Okay.
And again, the question, let's go kind of focus back on the question. It is a request to extend the period of extend the legal non-conforming status based on the fact that the building has been vacant for more than 1 year. So there's a lot of, this building does not meet a lot of the normal zoning provisions that are currently in place. It's just that the parking is the one that I think is a very important question that we discuss.
Mr. President, sorry. Mr. Rudd. Thank you. Do any of these units have to be ADA accessible?
That's not a question for the Plan Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from the commissioners?
I guess I would ask Dennis, could you talk a little bit about the other places that you have in Hammond? Because you've clearly worked very hard to, at least in my mind, we've had a meeting, and
Yeah.
it seems to me like you guys have really worked hard to try to find some places that needed to be improved. And could you just elaborate a little bit on what holdings you have now?
Yeah, of course. So we have a 5-unit building at 4319 Homan Ave that's directly north of the Hammond train station. So it's a single-story building. North Hammond's a great location. We're bullish on that area of Hammond. We think geographically it's very superior from its location to Chicago, location to Expressway, and we think that area is a great asset to the city. We have a 30-unit property essentially at the intersection of 165th and Kennedy Ave, almost sharing a parking lot with Freddy's Steakhouse. That building, when we acquired it in July of 2017, was, a little bit in shambles. It was probably 30% occupied, not with the right people that the city wants in there, and it was heavily in disarray. 5 of the units were vacant from fire damage. There was still water leaking down when we acquired the building. And over a 2-year period, we could say now that 30-unit building is now 100% occupied to great hardworking people. We don't have anything against subsidized housing. We think it's great, but all of our rental units are 100% market rate housing. We don't have any assistance from any government agencies, so it's all people with steady income, steady jobs. And then our third building is the one off of Park Place and Waltham, very close to the High Slot property. And renovations on that building, we put all brand new windows, put a brand new boiler in there, and we've done just general building renovations, making the units up to modern day. And that's also with us being a licensed, bonded, and insured commercial general contractor with the city of Hammond.
I hate to repeat, but previous owners of this property had no parking arrangements other than street parking. Are you
To our
aware?
knowledge, that would be correct.
I'm sorry.
To our knowledge, that would be correct.
Yeah, we think that maybe this is a long-term plan, but the single-family house directly behind the building has been vacant. We don't know who owns it. The NIPSCO meters aren't even on in the building. Part of the windows are boarded up. I know the city wouldn't want to, demolish a house, right? But if you could, and this would be a longer term, and you can build a nice fenced-in parking lot directly behind the building, because unfortunately the building's vacant. I'm not sure if that owner is paying his property taxes or not either. But that'd be kind of an ideal long-term plan if we can make that happen. But that's a little bit tougher to do.
I was just trying to clarify that in my head. Many years ago, when I got out of school, I lived in 200 block of Waltham there's a U-shaped apartment building. I don't know what the name of it is. We parked, right across from Harrison Park, but I don't recall, there was a lot of cars, and I'm sure today there's more cars, per household than there was then, but I was just curious if maybe in the past there had been any parking arrangements with any businesses in the area, but just wondered.
We don't know that, but I think one of the distinctions between the situation in those apartment buildings and this one is those buildings have been continually occupied and have not had a period of vacancy. And that goes back to the question before the Planning Commission, is that this building has been vacant for more than the 1-year period, which is triggering this review of this provision. The other properties, while they're also legal nonconforming uses in the neighborhood, and don't meet all those requirements, including probably enough parking, but they're allowed to continue under that legal nonconforming clause because they have not been vacant. That's an important distinction.
Thank you. Further questions, comments, concerns from the board? If not, we'll open up the public hearing portion. You go ahead and sit down. Anyone in the public wishing to have anything to say, please come forward, sign in, your name and address, and then if you'll please tell the board your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Thomas Ewell. Yeah, just in case. My name is Dr. Thomas Ewell. I live at 5943 Park Place in Hammond. My home is on the next block and at the end of the alley next to 5945 Hyslop Place. I have lived on my block for nearly 20 years and I am almost a newcomer. I ask you to include my comments in and this letter in the record of this meeting. What I'd like to do with your permission is read the beginning of introduction and summarize some questions that I have about the building, which are summarized at the end of my comments on this written sheet. The neighborhood is generally defined by Highland Avenue on the south, the recently developed bicycle path on the east, Waltham Street on the north, and Holman Avenue on the west. We are only 2 blocks wide and 1 block long. It's a small neighborhood. The wider community forms the eastern edge of the 3rd district of the city, which is composed of many small, distinct enclaves. It should be noted that in the May primary elections, the broader community selected a new community-based councilperson. The petitioner seeks to link himself and the family with Hammond through family lineage. but his and the family non-real estate holdings are located in Munster, not Hammond. The petitioner seeks to rehab 5945 Hyslop Place for profit, not necessarily for the benefit of the neighborhood or the homeowners, owner-occupied rentals, or the folks living on these few blocks. Money flows out of the community with this business model. On the other hand, community revitalization projects seek to bring enhanced value to all the members of the community. Revitalization brings direct inflows to the community and benefits all those who live in it. For example, when Hammond invests in bike trails, new athletic center, park improvements across the city, similar to those taking place in Martin Luther King Park, improving downtown additional parking, or a decorative fountain, the intention is to provide benefits to everyone in the area or the city. These terms are not judgments. Rather, I intend them to provide definitions and distinctions between the pulling forces within communities, especially those poor communities like mine. Please note that there is no mention in the petition about any community input, not even the required notifications, which we received last week, to the point of where I could not get the inspection on the building. All I was able to get was the petition that was submitted to you. The community has very little place in the rehab for profit business model. I would disagree with this. An attempt might actually be better for me, an empty lot might be better for me and the neighborhood more than the potential problems that could be created by this rehab for profit. This tug between profit and the revitalization is at the heart of my neighborhood. Like twin pulses of the heart pumping blood in and out of the heart. But as we all know, the rhythm can be either good or bad. I am not opposed to this profit for rehab. I appreciate outside money being invested in the neighborhood and our community. However, I have questions which I would like answered before I support this rehab for profit. The petitioner is asking the Planning Commission to endorse a fiction in that the property has not been abandoned for 6 years and that the property has not fallen into disrepair for many years prior to that. I ask the Plan Commission to reject this falsehood. I ask the Planning Commission to call for a new independent inspection of the property. I ask this because after several talks with my neighbors about this rehab for profit, they expressed concerns about the close relationship between the city and developers. I tend to agree. In addition, the neighborhood members received short notice about this rehabilitation for profit. My neighbors and I were unable to get copies of the city inspection documents that are critical to this rehab for profit. The original letter was written on or about June 4th and received well after that date. A second certified letter notice was received just last Friday.
Excuse me, Doctor.
Yes.
I think the board is able to read
Okay.
your document. Do you want to just get down to your questions?
Yes, but I need to point out one thing. Yeah, I'll just go to the questions. You can read the document. It'd be easier on you, I guess. First of all, the inspection. We don't know how this inspection was done. I mean, it's dark, it's been no electricity, no water. So how do we know what the pipes, especially radiators, I mean, I had to put in a generator to keep my pipes safe during the winter when I travel. So we don't know what the shape of the pipes are. We can assume that the boiler is going to have to be replaced, the hot water heater. We don't know what frozen pipes took place over the winter. So we want to know how the city knows the condition of the piping, both heating and water in that building. We have questions as to the last time the electrical system was updated and when the pipes, both steam and water, were updated. We want to know how many dumpsters are going to be brought into that house. That alley behind there has been a problem for years because there's no clearance between the alley and the building. So dumpsters are going to have to go in there. We want to know how many and how often they're planned to be changed. Because that alley is a mess. I have supplied pictures at the end of this to explain some of these points. We want to know what the mix of apartments will be and how many one-bedroom, two-bedroom studios, etc., there are in 5945. Presently, the owner owns a building next to me. He is an okay landlord. He has made improvements. But he has not improved the appeal of the building as such. There are no repaired mailboxes, no new doors on the inside of the lobbies. So is he going to do that kind of upgrade to this, or is it simply for profit? We want to know what he's going to do with the larger apartments in that building, assuming there are some. Because at 5943, next to me at 5940 on Park Place, those were large one-bedroom apartments which are now being converted to two-bedroom apartments. So how many real apartments are we going to wind up with at 5945 on Hyslop, increasing the number of vehicles? In his petition, he speaks about improving the concrete and the masonry. Well, is he going to do that with the building itself? Because he hasn't done that at Park Place. And if he's not, that's fine, but don't bring it in as an issue here. And is he planning on doing beautification to the neighborhood? Something the community has a right to ask. We want to make sure that if he runs into serious financial issues for anything in that building, piping, plumbing, whatever, that he has the financial resources to do this. He doesn't have to report that to me. He should report it to you, the Planning Commission, and whoever else is involved in that process. These buildings, as we've all done, lots of rehabs in our houses. And I bet you most of us have found there were always some reason for cost overruns. We want to make sure this building isn't half rehabbed and then bailed out on. That's not unreasonable. We asked the question, and you covered it tonight, where are those 28-plus cars going? And I think tonight, for the first time, he explained to you some of the options he has. One of those options, he said, was the house across the street from mine. And I know, talking to my neighbors, they do not need another parking lot on our block, which will destroy the character of that block. We are single-family homes with a few owner rentals, and we do not need 42 cars trying to cram into a parking lot across the street from me. So that's a real problem. So there are a lot of problems here, and I am willing, and I'm sure you're willing, to work with the landlord to get these worked out. It's just that we're not ready. He has not provided the answers. So I hope you will pursue this and get answers to our neighborhood questions. Thank you. If there's any other questions, I'll be glad
Thank you,
to
Doctor.
answer them.
Did he sign in? Did he sign in?
He signed it before.
Yeah, before he stated yes. Dennis?
Well,
ask for any other comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any other members of the public wanting to come forward? Please sign in with your name and address, and please state your name and address before the board when you're done.
Yes, my name is Kevin Burnett. I reside at 5964 High Slop Place. And basically, my fiance and I, we really do oppose of this. I mean, we don't want this. When that building, we've been there in that house for like 13 years now. And when that building was operational, it was a nightmare. People hanging out on the street all times of night. Cars parked all the way from one end to the other. We already have 4 buildings on that block. If the Belvedere that's on Highland and High Slop was at its capacity, we already have problems. We have enough issues with problems and strange people coming in and out of that neighborhood already. And for that many units to be reopened on that same block would be a nightmare for us. We already can't park in front of our own home. And more activity in that area no. It wouldn't be good for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wanting to come forward?
Did you bring us the sheet on the call?
Please sign in, name and address.
My name's Jeff Riddle. I live at 5959 High Slop Place. For many of the same reasons that Kevin just brought up, parking when that apartment building was operational. It's not such an issue now because I'm like in a forced retirement, but I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, there'd be cars blocking our driveway. You got to call somebody and try and make it to work on time. The convenience store at Holman and Highland Street, it's a convenient cut-through to get through, and I can't tell you how much garbage gets dropped off. They finish their chili dog or finish their soda or whatever, and the stuff ends up in our yards. You know, I do welcome, the High Slop apartments are near and dear to me. My parents lived there when they got married and bought this house down the street when it went for sale. So Martin Noy used to be the caretaker. I knew him as a little kid, shoveling the walks, and I welcome, you know, if they're going to do it, and I hope they get the parking thing straightened out because that's one of the main concerns. Some of the other questions that were brought up earlier, it sounds like they're doing the electricity, the plumbing, everything. That sounds all well and good, but we do have problems in the neighborhood. The alley was brought up. That alley is terrible, and it's a rough T in the alley because as a kid, I got hit by what's the name of the dairy company? I forget the guy, when they used to deliver milk. He hit me when I was on my bike because you can't see around the corner. And I wonder about the traffic in that alley being an issue too. Other than that though, those are main concerns, the parking, the litter, and what they're gonna do, increase with the alleyways, because I'm on ClickFix regularly with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members in the public wanting to state whatever is on their mind? Please come forward. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close the public comment portion, and we'll let the petitioner respond to the various items that have been brought up.
fair to give him this list of questions that the doctor had brought forward? Would it be fair to give the petitioner the list? Because I don't believe he has a copy of this report.
I do not.
We have extra copies, we can do that.
I think it just,
You can just go through the list and address them, would be
Rather-
probably the most
yeah.
efficient way.
and anything else you might have heard, but thanks to
Yeah.
the good doctor, he's provided us with some specific questions, and that would be maybe succinct and to the point. Thank you.
Sounds great. First, I just want to thank the local property owners, homeowners of the area. We appreciate.
Dennis, you
Okay.
you've got to
Okay.
talk to
We,
the planning commission.
we appreciate everyone coming out and showing support for their community, showing pride that they take care in their area, as we do as well. Just because we're landlords or provide affordable, great housing to people, doesn't make us view the neighborhood any different as if we were a homeowner living on the block ourselves. And through this renovation project, we are not trying to flip the property for a quick profit, anything like that. We want to be long-term owners and investors, taxpayers within the community. We take a long-term view of doing this. We're not trying to make a quick profit or anything like that. And I'll answer the questions really quick, but before I do that, I certainly understand and appreciate Doctor's points on the type of community investment that he likes, which is building parks, recreation. But at the same time, that's all public funding. There has to be public investment with public dollars, and there also has to be private investment, and that has to go hand in hand. So this is just an example of when private investment can come in, which would help fund future public investments into the community. So to run through it, how we're going to renovate the building, per city code with Hammond, we're using all licensed, bonded, and insured contractors with the city of Hammond. We're having Salyer Plumbing do all the plumbing. They are a local Hammond contractor. We are having either LNS Electric or another Hammond-based electrical contractor. He's going to replace all the copper wiring in the building. It's going to be 100% all brand new electrical and mostly 100% all new plumbing per Salyer Plumbing. We're going to have a brand new roof put on the building, and that's going to be by a Hammond-based contractor as well. So we're using all Hammond-based contractors, are all licensed, bonded, and insured, and it's a serious renovation project. This is not slapping a coat of paint on the walls, throwing a couple of appliances, and getting people into the apartments. This is what we have budgeted as a $700,000 investment into the community, which comes out to an investment of $25,000 per unit. And we have a strict budget that we have broken out with all of the major trades coming in there. And really quick to your question on the pipes freezing, everything like that, the water has been turned off to the building for the past several years, so there's no burst pipes. The city of Hammond did that well long ago. How many dumpsters are going to be rehab the building? It's probably going to be about $3,500 in dumpster fees, maybe about 7 dumpsters. And we'll do that, and you can fit a dumpster on the front lawn, so it wouldn't block any of the alleys.
So you mean that during construction purposes?
Correct.
Okay, I think he was meaning that long-term.
Okay. We'll probably have 2 dumpsters put there right on the back against our building that won't block the alley at all. Okay, I was confused by that question. How many 1-bedrooms, 2-bedroom studios, et cetera? We're not changing the building footprint or layout at all. We're not adding rooms. We're not busting anything down. We're maintaining the exact usage of the current building. That answers questions 5 and 6. Let me see. Question number 7, does a petitioner have financial resources if they face problems? We have a full budget. We think it's an extensive budget. And then our family as well We own 3 generations of insurance agencies here in Northwest Indiana, so this is one of the businesses that we own. So we have the financial wherewithal and a bank to support us that's local and has branches in Hammond as well. There's a partitioner plan to improve building details and beautification of the neighborhood. We're planning to do landscaping is in our budget, so full landscaping on the outside. Other beautification projects, we'll have to meet with the local neighborhood committee to find out what are their initiatives, what they want to do to move forward, and try our best to help advance those. So it'd be a future project that we'd love to work on with the local neighborhood committee. We touched on parking a bit. The parking, we understand that it is an issue, but it's not a new issue to the area. You know, this building was built in 1928. It's not a new construction that we're implementing, so all of these houses in the building have been intact for the past several decades. So this is, you know, the issue of the parking isn't nothing new, but we do want to work our hardest to find a solution so it doesn't disrupt the local residents. And I think the parking pass idea is a great idea that we're going to definitely put in place.
Did you make note of any, Dennis, of any questions from the other individuals?
I mean, the other ones just in regards to disrupting the neighborhood with parking. Again, we certainly do recognize that, but we think that having a building that's 100% occupied versus vacant, not paying property taxes, will raise the property values for these owners as well. So you have other productive assets in the local community, which will raise the property values for all other adjacent buildings.
Okay, I'm not sure if this was asked, but I'm gonna, you just acquired the building on, I'm sorry, what was the date of that?
June 7th, I think.
June 7th, it was a Friday.
Right, and other than your own due diligence of inspecting the building ahead of time, you haven't done any painting or any other rehab activity?
All we've done is to secure the building.
Okay. And now that, okay, we still have the question of the non-conforming status, but kind of speaking to the building code side of it, other than you have a budget for your rehab, have you created specifications? Have you gone out to bids yet? Have you talked to the building commissioner yet about what code issues may arise?
Yes, we have. We've had contractors come through. All the contractors that I reference have already been in the building and been on the roof. So we've already gotten hard bids from several contractors that we locked them in to that price. So those contractors I reference have been in the building within the past week. So Salyer Plumbing, Sanchez Roofing has been on the roof. Electrical contractor has been in the building.
Okay, but you have not discussed anything with the building commissioner at this point?
Are you referencing Bob Vale?
Either Bob or anybody else, but yeah, but particular Bob Vale, yes.
So when speaking with Bob Vale previously, he's for renovating the property as long as we get the approval of the planning commission.
Right, no, and I appreciate that, but I guess what I'm asking is, you haven't reached the point of him reviewing any of your specifications to make sure that everything is compliant with code?
That would really be the jobs of the specific contractors that we hire.
Oh, okay.
So that would be Salyer Plumbing would work with the building commissioner to make sure all their plumbing standards would do that. That's That's their job that we're paying them to do.
Right, and that's typical. So, okay, you've answered my question.
Okay.
I guess I would ask, what happens if you can't move forward on the project? I think that's a tough situation. What would happen if the project doesn't move forward? If you don't get this exemption from the city?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'd be something, it'd be real tough. We'd have to think about, you know, I'm not really sure. We haven't really thought about it. You know, it's just, I don't know. You'd have to continue paying property taxes on a building that it kind of sits vacant. And I know we spoke with other members of the Plan Commission previously, and, you know, there's other vacant buildings in the city, you know, reference LaSalle Hotel, et cetera, that, you know, we'd love to help out with as well. So we know sometimes getting the first one passed through is a challenge with different things, but we'd love to help out the city with more of its challenges, more of its city-owned assets. You know, so your questions, what would we do if we didn't get it passed? I'm not really sure. We'd have to sit on the building.
I think at this point, it's the condition that it's in now, today. It remains in the condition it does if it doesn't move forward. It continues to deteriorate over time, and there's no, versus your opportunity to come in here and revitalize it and make it better, get life in the building and kind of improve the whole neighborhood in a way that hopefully is in concert with what's going on over there.
Exactly, yeah.
Any other comments from commissioners? Mr. Hunt?
Thank you. Mr. Poland, is the parking part of our responsibility, or is that another department in the city?
Parking requirements are part of the zoning ordinance, so that is an issue for us. Does that answer your question?
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Right? The answer is yes. Is that right, Brian? It's
Yes, I said it's a part of it. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so our vote today includes that as well.
The question before the Plan Commission is whether or not you agree to extend the legal nonconforming status beyond the 1 year, which in essence is from 2015 to 2020, and that I think the parking question is something that needs to be addressed.
How do we address it?
That is for you guys to deliberate and determine whether or not they have presented information that adequately answers the question about parking.
Can I ask what we've done in the past? Have we been faced with this situation in the past? My tenure on the Plan Commission's only been about 3 years.
Right.
So.
This particular provision is the first time in my years that we have ever used this provision. So I don't have a precedent specific to this provision. However, those are questions about nonconformity, and I wish our attorney was here to answer that question better. But parking is always an issue as we move forward in our world. That cars are necessary evils, is my pet phrase. And I think those are the things that need to be addressed. There are many ways that you can address parking, and I know that there were several that were presented here, but that is an important question to be resolved.
If I can ask the petitioner, is there any way for you to give us some sort of commitment on the parking? Is it, if we, I'm trying to run through scenarios in my head. If we vote, if we held this over to another meeting, does that complicate your life? And can we get somewhere further down the line from your agreements with parking from these possible locations? Would that help you, because that's what it seems like that's one of the major issues, probably the major issue that we're trying to deal with. I think there's other things that we'd like to kind of talk about too, as we get further in the process of this meeting, but is that something that would work within your timeframe?
You know, with any renovation project, you have timelines, there's a budget, there's a certain amount of holding costs. You know, unfortunately here in Chicagoland area, there's a tough winter that you have to get certain buildings heated with before then. But you can get our commitment that we'll have 42 permitted.
I have a question.
Well, he's still answering.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But you can get our commitment that we'll have 42 permitted parking spaces to the city before you issue us at all a certificate of occupancy for any apartment unit. So we're open to filing our 42 permitted parking spaces when we split it out before we get any certificate of occupancy before we can rent out any unit.
Can we do a conditional?
Can I ask, yeah, who conducted your due diligence on this before you made the purchase?
So with any real estate transaction, it's complicated, right? So our due diligence comes from our experience as business owners, and sometimes, you know, the individual we're buying from, he's out of state. He was an out of state investor, hard to get a hold of. We couldn't get 100% of the right information that we could in a normal transaction where the person wasn't losing the building per se. But through our due diligence, working with Brian, with the other members of the Planning Commission, we were able to get more information on how to properly, or what were the steps that we had to do to notify the surrounding community. So that was part of the due diligence.
I was just wondering about the conditional part of, you know, doing this on a conditional basis. It'd be terrible if you start on everything and then the conditions aren't satisfied. You know, where does that leave you?
Right, and I think I would ask you to, I don't know how to respond to that, because I think your point that you made is that what's the point, what are the conditions, what is the point of measurement, at what point in time, if there is a point in time when something is not met, that, and they've invested in money, then how is that going to be resolved?
I think the petitioner's clearly stated that he's willing to commit to 42 parking spaces at this time, and that we would, I mean, he's looking for us to get exemption from this 1-year period of legal nonconforming, and before he can rent any of the apartments, he's going to have 42 spaces demonstrated, documented, and we can withhold that at that time if he doesn't.
Well, the action tonight is to extend the legal nonconforming status. So if you are going to make a motion to extend that, that would give him an opportunity to start pulling permits. And then you would have this future action of determining whether the parking requirements, that he's fulfilled that responsibility, and to then advise the building commissioner to not issue the occupancy permit until they are resolved. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, there's more to discuss here, I think, but that's what the petitioner is committing to here today. I think that he's committing today to start investing in this property and committing to find 42 spaces of parking within the area that meets the requirements. And I understand that we haven't done this before, right? That's the issue. It's this subject hasn't been brought to this commission, and the petitioner is seeking to invest a lot of money in rehabbing and improving a site that may never improve, notwithstanding there's additional traffic to the neighborhood, there's additional impacts to those residents in the neighborhood now. You know, whether the building stays or goes is a big determination. And I think I heard earlier from at least some of the remonstrators that, revitalization is okay. And I couldn't support that more. I think the mayor is pushed towards revitalization in this case. Downtown revitalization is very important as it relates to the forthcoming Westlake extension. And so I don't know how we can stop this from happening when the petitioner is basically guaranteed he will find the parking spaces available to make the situation work.
And Brian, if I heard you correctly, if we were to grant the extension down the road, as far as occupancy permits, if the parking hasn't been satisfied and requirements met, it's still an empty building, right? I mean, you can't, they have the requirements of parking.
Who controls that?
The building commissioner, whether he issues a certificate of occupancy to the building at all.
I understand the concept of what you're trying to go with, and I think to some extent this would be distilled down into a commitment document, and we don't have our attorney here to advise us on how to approach that. So I'm a little concerned about, because we're talking about a significant legal question here without our advice of our attorney. So I'm a little concerned about us making too many commitments at this time.
42 cars in that neighborhood for the last 5 years haven't been there. And now we're going to add 42 cars to the neighborhood. Let's say that you do get these parking arrangements worked out with adjacent property owners, which is a great thing. I agree with Mr. Button, let's renovate the building, let's get it occupied, let's get people into the city that are good people. We get that.
Yeah, definitely.
We want that. But I want to back up to, the three people that stepped forward. And Brian, is there a way that we can help protect their parking spaces in front of their homes so that they don't have, because I'll be glad, let me restate that. I'm sure somebody living in that apartment would be glad to park there than on the west side of Holman Avenue.
I don't know of any mechanism to designate that a public parking along the street is for one individual or another, because it is a public street and people have a right to park on a public street. And as much as I think all of us maybe privately think that they have a right to park in front of their own house and no one else can park there, and I even put myself in that category. I don't think there's any legal mechanism to do that. But then again, we don't have our attorney, and I'm not sure how further to address that question.
You've made that comment several times about the lack of our attorney not being present.
Yes,
Should we table this for 30 days, members?
That would be my guess.
Well, or do we have to wait till the next plan commission? Can we schedule a special meeting at this stage? We have
Okay.
look, there's a lot to go on here. We have a petitioner that wants to move forward, and okay, so from the administration's position, I hope I can try to speak. The mayor would say, I hope, please, Mayor, if this was happening in my neighborhood, would I be for or against it? And I have to think about those things too. If this was my neighborhood, would I want to see this building develop? And it's not in my neighborhood, so
Right.
The issue is that there's a building that's in disrepair. We have an opportunity to improve the building and improve the neighborhood at some risk. And the bottom line is, we believe that there's a parking and traffic issue that relates to this matter. And so while we may not have our council present, I'm okay with waiting to get legal input on this, but I don't think this should wait for another 30 days. And will this require a re-notification of this petition being heard?
I need my attorney to answer that question.
So that's the trick bag we're in, I'm sorry.
Right.
Is 2 weeks gonna cause you a lot of heartburn in
Well,
terms of trying to resolve this?
Let's kind of talk about that. The next Plan Commission meeting is officially scheduled for July 15th. 2 weeks from now is July 1st, and I would have to have an answer by tomorrow to let them know if there is further legal notification requirements, because everything is 10 days before the meeting, because right now we're operating on 14 days, and we have a couple of days to, if we have to re-notify, there's a couple of days, there's time to prepare the documentation. That is at issue. So July 8th is 1 week earlier than the Plan Commission meeting, but on a Monday night, that is the council meeting.
Can I ask a question? Well, why is it customary for the city attorney to not be present at most of these meetings?
He's normally here. This is unusual for him not to be here.
Okay.
Should we check on him? Should we check on him to find? Maybe we should be worried, I don't know.
Well,
He's normally.
Yeah, he's usually sitting here.
Right. He was contacted, but we didn't get a response back.
And I didn't get emails before I came, so I don't know.
Well,
Can you wait till the next Plan Commission meeting for an answer?
Of course, I mean, we certainly can. You know, as a business owner looking to invest in, you know, multiple communities throughout greater Chicagoland area, you know, looking at the competitiveness of the local business municipalities, you know, we prefer not to wait, of course, as any business owners, but we certainly understand that there has to be agreement from all parties and the city attorney present.
He's in trial. I just texted him. He's in a trial right now, so
There's a valid
apologies.
excuse.
Well,
So, other than I said that the next official meeting is the 15th, the 8th is the council meeting. I don't know what, if this room is available on the 9th, but that's a Tuesday. Are the Plan Commission members present, able to make any commitment that if we had to go to the 9th, which is a Tuesday, could that happen? Okay, that's true. But that would be done in time.
you want a poll of the members for the night?
Yes, because, I mean, as Shannon just reminded me, we do have a Preservation Commission meeting that night.
Start at the other end?
Yeah, the other end.
I'm available.
Yes, I am too.
I'm available.
Okay, I would be available.
Okay, so we have that as a possibility, so either the 15th or the 9th. Are you available the 9th?
We're available.
Okay.
So I don't know if this is the right time, and, you know, it's the petitioners, but the city had received some documentation in advance of a meeting that we had together with our chief of staff president. Mr. Poland was there. We apparently had done some research in terms of how things maybe have improved in a police response or police call activity in your existing businesses that you have run, and we've found that, I hope it's okay for me to say, but we found improvements as it relates directly to your ownership and your participation in those areas. And I think it's important for the Plan Commission to hear that your investment, your work, your review of your tenants and their references has promoted an improved level of safety, a level of security to the city. At least that's what we've seen. Now that's knock on wood, because you never, we can't, when we say things like that, we tend to have something bad happen. But we just think that the petitioner has shown good faith in terms of what's going on here. I think, to me, this is a good project moving forward. And if we can get through just a couple of these things, that you have my support in what you're trying to do here. So I guess I'm not formally coming out and voting on behalf or against that or trying to push this issue, but this is a good thing for our city to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
The information that Dean referred to, I only included, it's in your packet, and I only included the information specific to this building. I did not include the other property.
The other property, okay.
But this is intended to show, demonstrate through the code enforcement information, what they call our Zone Pro program. This is the proof that demonstrates the point that Mr. Button was making.
Thank you.
Well, is the 9th okay for you, Mr. Hutt?
Thank you. Yes, it is.
Okay. I couldn't remember if you responded or not.
Okay, so we'll have to, determine, there's some things to make sure as to whether it's the 15th or the 9th. We still have to double check that. We will do our best to try and make it as early as possible. Please be aware that we may be contacting you. I'm just saying there's a possibility that we have to look for an alternative date, so just be cognizant that you may get another email or a phone call saying, what about this date?
So at this point, we're kind of open.
Right now, we're going to focus on the 15th and the 9th, and then we're going to deal with, if those don't work out for whatever reasons. Well, actually, the 15th will work out fine. It's just the 9th. We'll let you know if there's we have to work with an alternative date.
Okay.
In particular, I want to make sure our attorney is here.
Well, I was just going to say we should,
Brian,
or the second in charge.
do we need to table this till the next meeting?
Or
That
defer,
was the
would it
gist
be?
of this conversation, yes.
I think, would it be deferred rather than tabled?
I'm not sure of the semantic difference of what you're saying, but I think the action typically is tabling. But I wouldn't worry about the semantics.
Okay, well, I guess we would be looking for a motion to table.
I'll make a motion, we table it until July 9th or the 15th.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and roll call.
Roger Bob?
Yes.
Dean Button?
Yes.
Ken Herbert? Yes. William Hutton?
Yes.
Sharon Zane?
Yes.
Thomas White?
Yes.
6 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, motion passed.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Poland, any correspondence?
No correspondence.
And any commissioners' comments at this point? Staff comments?
Other than us rescheduling this meeting, there's nothing on the agenda for July.
Okay.
Nothing else on the agenda for July.
Any public comment? Any further public comment? Hearing or seeing none? Entertain a motion for adjournment?
So moved.